a lot of people, just take it, word of mouth that Flint was just trying to save some money, so it
Right.
switched over to Flint River. Obviously, they cut corners. They didn't put the anti-coercive measures in, and we know what happened. But really, what people don't know is there was a pipeline involved in this. It seems
Right.
like pipelines are the
Right.
source of all evil. Can you kind of explain from the beginning how a water pipeline played a part here?
Yeah, and that was the sweetheart. They called it the sweetheart bond deal. The Carigandi Water Authority. They decided to, instead of being at the mercy of Detroit and them raising their water rates, we'll create our own water authority, and we'll be able to supply same Lake Huron water at much lower prices.
And that was Flint decided to use the.
Flint, Genesee County, a couple other cities that got all involved in this deal.
And the KWA is a private water
Yeah,
company.
it's a water authority, which means they can take loans and issue bonds for money, and it's, water for profit.
So basically, private water. So Flint decided, let's change from Detroit. It's too expensive.
Right.
We're going to use a private water company.
Right.
And expand further. They decided to go with KWA. It's a water pipeline, and essentially all in the name of
Saving money.
saving money. But by doing that, they essentially poisoned
Everybody.
themselves. But also, there's an underlying element of, in a way, trying to force your citizens out.
Right, definitely. And that's what happened. That's how it was sold to the citizens. That Detroit's raised every year. The rates keep going up. We can provide our own, aka the Flint River, and in the meantime, why pay Detroit when we can have our own? That was the sale to it, and it had been in motion since the '60s to switch the water source. So things just happened. Emergency managers in place. They made the decision, and when the decision was made to join in the KWA, the Detroit Water and Sewer said, "Well, since you won't be with us anymore, we're going to terminate our contract." And that was the big thing that they announced to all the people in Flint. Detroit terminated their contract. We have to find another drinking source. And that's when the Flint River came up. Everyone local.
They didn't tell people why Detroit terminated
No,
the
they
contract.
didn't tell, and they didn't tell people also that Detroit was willing to negotiate. They did not want to lose Flint as their number one customer up north. Because we, like I was saying, we bought the water from Detroit and sold it to all the surrounding communities.
So Flint made money
Made money off the
from
water.
selling to other municipalities.
Right, exactly. So that's one of the things that when we say saving money, how does that happen? You went from selling water to buying water. How is that ever going to save you money? But then again, it happened. So yeah.
So previously, Flint was buying the water from Detroit,
Right.
and then selling to a bunch of different places. Whereas now they were buying it from this private water
Yeah.
source at a lower rate,
Yeah.
and presumably would still be selling to the same.
Yep.
Okay.
Exactly. So, and as we seen how the deal went along, Flint sold its access to Detroit because they're no longer needed since Detroit terminated this, contract, and it was picked up by the surrounding communities. Genesee County bought it and continued to supply them. Meanwhile, that's when the switch was decided to go to the Flint River. They said, we are charging them X amount of money. Now we don't have to give Detroit any of it. We keep everything that we collect from people. And during this time, when I say collect, they were doing water shutoffs. They were putting tax liens on your home and then taking your home from you. So that's how it was going in the city. And to say like they want you gone, that's what was happening. They were taking and taking.
This is the city of
The
Flint.
city of Flint, right? They were taking houses, and they were say you're a renter looking for water, get your water turned on, you had to pay $450 deposit that was not added to your bill, was never deducted or refunded. You just had to pay it just to be a customer.
And this is after they switched off from Detroit?
Yeah, this is after they switched off, before they knew they got in trouble. And right away, residents were complaining. People were losing their hair. They were getting sick. And in the meantime, the Legionella, all the things that were coming out of that biofilm, which was being released from having the highly corrosive Flint River water.
So when they switched to Flint River, that was really just a temporary means until they could use the KWA.
Yeah, that was the temporary source.
And switching to the Flint River, I mean, call me cynical, but it seemed like they did it actually put much thought into it.
Right.
It was just kind of like the end game is using this cheaper pipeline.
Right.
So, they're going to be selling. They're going to be buying cheaper, selling about the same rates to these other municipalities. So when they switched to the Flint River, was that Governor Snyder's decision, or was that the city of Flint's decision?
That was, we now know that came from the top. Governor Snyder's had his emergency managers handle the rest, because the letter from Darnell Early, saying the emergency manager recently charged to Detroit, saying we are no longer going to pursue services with you. That was basically telling Detroit it's over.
And the municipalities that Flint previously had, they bought from Detroit and then sold it to these other municipalities. Did those other municipalities also get cut off from Detroit's water?
No, and that's the thing. The pipeline connection to the Detroit water was sold to Genesee County, so they could continue to operate with Detroit. They never switched the cities around. There's some little parts that were on the water system.
So when Flint switches to KWA, who are they going to sell it to if these people are still using Detroit?
Right, they weren't. They went from being the seller to now being a buyer.
I see.
So that's
Doesn't make much
It
sense
doesn't. It
if
doesn't.
you're trying to save money. How are you going to make money that way?
They weren't, and it falls in line with the takeover process, as you've seen come up from Detroit and Pontiac and Flint and Saginaw. All these former GM cities have been took over, gutted, all their resources that belong to the communities all gone. State's budget's balanced, but now these communities are dead. It didn't make sense. The whole emergency manager program and everything they did, it didn't make sense. And that's, like I said, I wasn't actively involved in local politics, but I'm watching these decisions play out, and I just can't believe that they continued and continue. And still, to this day, the drain commissioner was unopposed in the election. Nobody runs against these guys. They all have everything in this area sewed up.
So the KWA pipeline,
Right.
that pipeline is flowing already, or it's not
It's
even?
completed, and they have the new permit to connect to Flint finally, but it hasn't started flowing yet.
But my question is, if they're still using, even if it's a different pipeline than the Detroit pipeline, if they're still going through Flint
Infrastructure.
where's the guarantee that
And there is none.
the water is going to be safe?
There is
It's
none.
the same pipes in Flint.
Right.
And those pipes have not been.
No. They've removed 600 connections around the city, but when this first happened, they didn't even have a correct map of the city's water infrastructure. This city's water infrastructure was built for 200,000 people. There's only 37,000 active users. Now imagine this big old system, and that's where the water quality can never be predicted, because there's some parts of the city whose water waits in pipes for weeks, and other parts get it fresh. 24/7 turnover. So
Let me take a guess. Which parts of the city get
right, exactly.
quicker
The
water?
north end, the north side of Flint, all the south end.
And that's where the money is?
That's where no money is. The north end is no money. That's where you'll see, if you go to the north side, the abandoned houses are.
Why do they get the water quicker?
The water quicker goes to the places over here, Ballinger Road, the places with the water that waits. It's all different parts of the city just because of the design of the system. Okay. That's why the water waits.
And when you look at stories, wait, I want to go back to the pipe for a second. So Flint basically went from the seller to the buyer,
right,
thinking they were going to save money. Right. But somewhere in that, call me cynical, I see something where they were actually purposely trying to drive out citizens.
Right.
I'm not going to go as far to say like they intentionally poisoned them. I wouldn't, unless I have proof.
Let's look at it. Here's the proof. No police protection, closed down their high schools.
Explain that because people don't know.
The city of Flint has one of the hardest working, overworked police forces in America. Like during the middle of the night, there's 4 to 6 officers on the street in a city of 100,000.
4 to 6.
Yeah.
That's it.
And that's it. So you don't have that police protection. You close down schools. All the schools in Flint have closed, combined, chartered. You close down that. You raise, now just think, GM Town, a lot of retirees have their retirement. They can pay this amount of bills every month. So you start hitting them higher water, higher electric. Now they can't afford to be here. Plus their mortgage, they're gone. Walk away. I've seen people whose houses they were worth 80, 90,000 walk away for 5,000. Just walk away. Take it.
Well, you drive on these streets and
Right.
it's just
a
falling
ghost
apart.
town.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the proof that they want you gone. And if you pay attention to what was happening here, there's this 50-year master plan, which and the idea of it is good, but 50 years from now, this community is going to look totally different. It's not going to be Flint that we know now. There's the design. You close these neighborhoods down, you shut the schools down, drive them out, poison water, who cares? We'll just keep selling at the nation's highest rates, mind you.
That's what I want to get to, because you showed me something. They poisoned the water. Money came in. Flint basically
To help.
the relief that they got
Right.
was paid for.
Right.
So Flint basically no money came out of Flint to pay for the water bottles and all that.
None of that.
But they're still then turning around and charging
They're
the
still
citizens.
collecting.
Yes.
They've never stopped collecting on their water bill. In 2015, when the state and the governor came and announced there's a problem, we're going back to Detroit, they paid $10 million. They sent another $30 million for paying people back for paying for poison water. A lot of people
Who's
have
they? The
credits.
state?
The state, yeah. They paid people for the problem. And then they sent more money. So the city has become a cash cow. They've taken everything.